Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, taking a small break away from the Tory skip fire again, it won't be for long, I'd like to discuss some views being shared about the prospect for the UK rejoining the EU and in what timescale, as the chief economics commentator for the Financial Times writes that the UK would be decades away from rejoining, if it ever does. But others are pointing out that the shoe's on the other foot with Brexit now, and they may well be failing to notice that Brexiteers are about to get a taste of their own medicine. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So Martin Wolf for the Financial Times says that he has been asked twice in the past month whether the UK is going to rejoin the EU by people on the continent. And his response was, not for decades, if ever. So what's his reasoning for this? Well, he sort of makes a point that both the UK and the EU have now changed. That although most regret that we left, the fact that we did leave means there's no genuine reversal of Brexit. In a way, this is true. If we join the EU, it will not be the same as when we were members in 2019. Not only would we have to comply with some rules for which we had opt-outs as a former member, a founder member, I should say, but the EU have continued to reform and we would need to adopt those reforms as well. Had we been committed members during this time, those reforms would have had UK input and may not have turned out quite the same. But although it is true that joining the EU would not technically be a reversal of Brexit, if you want to be pedantic, that doesn't mean that we won't do it. It's not like the British people have got this image of the EU as it was when we were members ago. This is what we want. Oh, well, I'm afraid the EU's changed, so you'd have to join this version. Oh, we don't want that. I mean, that's like, where's the reasoning for that? There's none of that. Once enough of us see us that not only the damage that Brexit's causing, but the benefits that membership will bring, we will apply to join. In fact, Wolf makes four coherent arguments against the UK wanting to rejoin. Note, he's not saying we shouldn't rejoin. He's just saying he doesn't think we will for a very long time. And his four main arguments are, first, that it would create a host of new and damaging uncertainties. Yes, there would be uncertainties, sure, but how damaging will they really be? Like, we've made much of the fact that businesses like certainty, but they have none with Brexit. We're currently making new rules for businesses on the hoof and then implementing them with no warning. Businesses are used to new rules coming online, get 2 or 3 years warning. They're not getting that. They're getting like a few weeks. This is the reality of Brexit Britain. Closed off from our most important market and a constantly shifting business environment. Joining the single market and customs union is a known quantity for businesses. They know what the rules are, and where there are rules that are changing, the EU give you plenty of notice. The only uncertainty would be in how long the process would take, and some finer details like trying to negotiate some of our old opt-outs and maybe not achieving some and maybe achieving others. Currency, for example. But none of these uncertainties would be new. They already exist. Second, it would tear British politics apart just as it was calming down. Now, I disagree strongly with this one on 2 points. First, politics is not calming down. As someone who commentates on politics, it is not calming down. We're looking like changing to a fourth Prime Minister in the space of a year and a bit. Either this month or next, maybe this week. And it's not caused by an election or by a hung parliament and an unstable government. It's just the craziness that Brexit has infected our politics with. There is nothing calm about British politics. Every single policy is still being presented to the public through the prism of Brexit. You know, every time a policy is being discussed, there's Tories going, yes, but what would Brexit Jesus think of it? This promise in 2019 of getting Brexit done and moving on never happened. The Tories and media are obsessed, and the general public is constantly having Brexit rammed down its neck. I also don't think it would tear British politics apart further because, and this is important, there is no realistic option to rejoin without the Conservatives being on board. The EU are not going to entertain an application from a Labour government, commit resources, only to see a few years later a Conservative government taking over again and chucking the whole thing in the bin. We rejoin when the major political consensus is that we should apply to rejoin. The disagreements will be around specific terms. There will be disagreements, not general aims. In fact, what will delay our application is really how long it takes for the Conservatives to throw their Brexiteers out of the airlock. And that is a process which will be hastened as public opinion shifts, because as public opinion shifts, the hard Brexit attitude becomes much less electable. And it's worth bringing in a different point of view here as well. See, one of Wolf's colleagues at the Financial Times, Chris Giles, has made a counterpoint that the shoe will be on the other foot with Brexit now. For years, decades even, Eurosceptics blamed the EU for everything. Everything that was not quite right was the fault of the EU or EEC precursor. We saw this on full display in 2016. Brexiteers made up problems which didn't exist. That's the EU's fault. Then they identified ones which did exist. That's the EU's fault, when it was actually Tory austerity in most cases. Well, Giles makes the point that the roles are reversed now. People will now blame Brexit for everything. Like, I regularly point to the damage that Brexit's causing. There are Brexiteers who complain, well, people are blaming Brexit for everything. I mean, that's not Brexit, is it? And it's not all Brexit. Some of it might be Brexit. It's not all Brexit. Stop saying it's Brexit. You know, they'll go, all of our inflation is, we had inflation before Brexit. Stop blaming it all on Brexit. Now, the thing is, I go to pains to try and point out the specific Brexit contributor. I try to be objective. I never say that everything bad is down to Brexit. There are some things that I see. I'll sometimes see an article that goes, oh, this thing because of Brexit. And I'll go, well, that's actually not Brexit. Or where Brexit is involved, like inflation, I will make it clear, you know, there is a Brexit component to our inflation. But it's not all down to Brexit. But it is true to say that some people just see a bad thing happening and say, that's Brexit, that is. But I would politely point out that Brexiteers have little cause to complain, because those people are only copying their example. They spent all those years blaming the EU for everything. Then we left. So now people are going to blame Brexit for everything. Supporters can whine all they like, but this is just the shoe being on the other foot now. As Giles says, it's just too tempting. That people are already forgetting that they voted leave. Now, come the election, it will have been 8 years since they did so. And in the exchange, which included strong agreement from David Hennig, there was another excellent point made. I don't know who they were, sorry. The public supported the invasion of Iraq about 20 years ago. There's strong public support for it. You don't find that public support in more recent polling, do you? Once the public have seen the practical implementation of a policy, when it's no longer, oh yes, we're going to do this and it will all be marvellous and it will all work out like this. Once people have seen it implemented and go, yeah, that's not actually what was promised, they tend to decide they don't support it after all. And the same will be true here. May not even take as long, because the impacts are being felt by people all across the country. It's really just a matter of joining up the dots. Every bad thing that happens now can be Brexit. And there'll be people who blame Brexit for things that aren't Brexit, or will amplify the share of the blame on Brexit. Is that fair? No, but neither were the lies about the EU before Brexit. Only a matter of time before you've got conversations down the pub. Oh, price of a pint's gone up again. Bloody Brexit. Yeah, suck it up. It's happening. And Brexiteers clearly believe this as well. Because do they look like they're enjoying Brexit? No, because they can see the way public opinion is going. Prominent Brexit supporters don't believe we've left the EU now and that's it, that they've got it in the bag. They sense danger to their project. That's why they're still agitating. Third point Wolf makes is that the deal we end up with will be different to the one we had before we left. Yes, undoubtedly. But like I say, the argument will come down to not can we get the deal we had, but can we get a better deal than what is... Can we improve Britain? Is Britain in the EU better than Brexit Britain? That is the argument. Brexit as it is now, or joining the EU on the terms that will exist at the time, rather than the special arrangements we once had. I don't dismiss the impact that discussion of currency will have. That is going to be the major sticking point. I don't downplay that at all. I do think that adopting the euro could be a major sticking point. But I also don't see how it's a problem as long as we do it properly this time. We legislate for a referendum that is in two parts. You make it clear in law that the first referendum is just permission to negotiate accession, not to join the EU. The second is once we've got the final terms, just to verify that the public are happy with those terms. The second referendum is the permission to join. It means we can try to negotiate an opt-out on the currency. I don't think the British public really care about the others anyway. And if we're unsuccessful, people still get a vote and may decide that, you know what, as so many transactions are digital anyway, especially if you're thinking sort of 10 years into the future, that they're not going to turn down the benefits of membership for what? Because they have to get a new computer keyboard? Because that's really the only tangible difference to people when it comes to currency anyway. And a fourth point made towards the end is that as a result of the situation in Ukraine, the EU needs to become more integrated. Wolf argues that only a minority of Britons want that. Now, this is true. We've always been more attracted to the economic benefits than the political benefits, unfortunately. But although he says that, the UK is not the only country that is not all that keen on this closer integration. Indeed, there are active plans, heavily promoted by France and now Germany, to create a second tier of membership. And this scheme is in direct response to the situation in Ukraine. So Wolf talks about closer integration, but we may benefit from a sort of satellite membership of the EU, at least first of all, that would suit us very well. And he cannot ignore the fact that the EU now contains a lot of members who, like the UK, were interested in the economic benefits, not the political integration. It's what's causing a bit of friction in the EU these days, in fact. And the EU will not solve that friction by doubling down on the cause. They're not Tories. They're not stupid. They will solve it by doing what the EU always does, finding a pragmatic solution to suit everyone. And that solution will be a good fit for people in Britain. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.